Hi, this is Editor Troxel. In this tutorial, we're going to look at a specific script that was requested. And for this particular script, the person was asking for something where he selects an audio file and the script renders only that single event. So he wants to click on an audio event and only that one single event is rendered, or in the case, if you create a loop region and no event is selected, that it would render the loop region. Then, if the user wants to avoid using all tracks, they can isolate the ones they want to be recorded, and then the exported audio file could be exported into a folder called Exported Audio in the same location as the project. And so he was wondering if that could be done and how difficult, and was just requesting that this particular script be written. So naturally it can all be done. It's a little more complicated, but let's begin looking in this tutorial about how we can actually get this accomplished. Here's our actual script, and this is all of the standard stuff that we have at the beginning. And then we are going to have to render, so I created me a public variable called myRenderer, which we set to null. And then another public variable called renderTemplate, which we also set to null. And then since I'm going to be outputting to a specific file, I need to know what file to output it to, so I just created me a string and set it to nothing. And then I also created me a new track for an audio track, which we initially set to null as well. That way, once the file is rendered, then we'll add it to that new track. So here we have our main routine with myVegas equals Vegas. The first thing we need to check to see is this file saved? Since we're wanting to save this to a folder in the same place as the veg file has to be created first. So we actually need to determine if this is saved. So if myvegas.project.isUntitled, then it's not saved. So I'm popping up a message box and saying, please save this project first. And previously I was just returning after that so that they could go in and save the project. But he asked, well, can you pop up the save box for me automatically? That way I can just save it right there. And the answer is yes, we can. And so we pop up this myvegas.saveProject, which pops up the save as dialog. And then after they dismiss that, we're checking again to see, is this project untitled? If it is still untitled, that means they pressed cancel and did not save the project, and so we will return at that point. The next thing we need to do is find the renderer. So here we have myTemplate equals find renderer. Now, he specifically said a WAV file. I looked at WAV and MP3 just to see what the various options were available. Here are the WAV and MP3. The WAV GUI ID is this right here, and then these are all of the default templates in Vegas for rendering to a WAV file, and each one of these you can see the different codes that are available to be used for each one of these. And then down here we have the MP3 is this ID, and then here are all of the default templates. So if you wanted to render to an MP3, then you could just pick one of these IDs to be able to identify which renderer you wanted to use. So what we did is we set up a find renderer routine, and so let's go look at that first. Here is our find renderer routine, and to find our renderer, what we're doing is going for each renderer in myvegas.renderers, and I'm putting these in here because I had found sometimes some of these were causing some errors along the way. That may have been totally resolved by now, but I have always put my renderer loops in a try catch just to make sure that if there was an issue with one that the script would just keep on going. If the renderer.classId.toString equals, and I put the one for wave in there, naturally here's the one for MP3, which I just included here to make it easy to switch back and forth. Then I set my renderer equal to renderer. And then if my renderer does not equal null, then I'm going to go for each render template in my render template in my renderer.templates. I always throw this in here just to make sure. If the render template dot is valid, then I'm going to check if the render template dot template GUID dot toString equals the one that I'm looking for from the list that we looked at previously. Then I set my template equal to render template. Then once it's done with the loops, we come down here, and if my template equals null, we're just going to show a message that says the desired template could not be found, and we'll return null. Otherwise, we return the template that we found. So when we come back up here, if my template does not equal null, then we want to do all of the other stuff. And the first thing we want to do is find the first selected audio event. So I am calling this routine right here, and it's returning the track event that is the first selected. So let's look at this routine. So here is our find first selected audio event routine, and to do this we're going for each track, my track in myvegas.project.tracks. If my track.isAudio, since we're specifically looking for a selected audio event, then for each track event in mytrack.events, if the event is selected, then we're going to return that event. Then if we go all the way through the loops and no event was found, we return null. That way, if there was no event found, we will tell it that by saying nothing was found, so it is null. So now we've done our find first selected audio event. If the event equals null and myvegas.transport.loopRegionLength.FrameCount equals 0, if there is no loop region, then we were going to pop up a message that says there were no events selected and no loop region was created. And so we're just going to simply exit out of here. Otherwise, we need to get a file name. And I elected to kind of choose a random file name to make it easier. Naturally, you could have used something that included like a 01, 02, 03 after it or something like that. I chose just to kind of randomize this, but let's look at the get a file name routine. Here is our get file name routine, and so our export path is going to be path.getDirectoryName from myvegas.project.filepath. Then we're going to add the path.directorySeparator character, and then we're going to add exported audio, since we said that we wanted this in a folder called exported audio underneath the current folder containing the project. Then if not directory exists export path, then we need directory.createDirectory export path. So if you did not have an exported audio folder, we have now created that folder so that our files can go inside there. Then our output file equals the export path, which we just created here, which includes that folder, plus the path.directorySeparator character. And then I use the path.getFileName without extension, and I pulling that from path.getRandomFileName. And then I'm adding on myrenderer.fileExtension.substring 1,4, which will give me the .wav or .mp3. And so I don't have to return anything on this one. It's not expecting anything in return. I'm just setting the output file equal to that path. So now if we go back and look at the very top, we've set the My Renderer, we've set the My Template, and we've set the output file. Now that we've gotten the new file name, we're going to create the new track, which is a new audio track in myvegas.project, and it's going to be track number myvegas.project.tracks.count. It's going to be the last track in the project, and we're going to call that added audio. And then we come down to myvegas.project.tracks.add, and we're going to add that new track. So now, looking back up here, we have our My Renderer set, our My Template set, our output file is set, and our new track has been created. So that is the end of this particular tutorial. You can see how we've gone through and gathered the 4 pieces of information that we're going to need. In the next tutorial, we'll finish and go ahead and get the files rendered and added to the timeline and continue on with that process. But this tutorial just shows how we can go about gathering the information and getting the random file name and finding the templates that we want to use. So I hope you find this tutorial useful. Like, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next tutorial.